y'all, it's Heather, and I'm super excited because today we're going to talk about eyeshadow palettes that I think are perfect for beginners. I shopped my stash of over 600 palettes to pull ones that I think are perfect for beginners. They're easy to use, the formulas are great, easy to work with. I pulled lots of different sizes, lots of different price points. These are going to be mostly neutral or neutral leaning palettes. I have some high-end brands, some independently owned brands, some brands that you can get at Ulta, Sephora, online, all different types of palettes here because I'm going to give you options. So as we go through, I'm going to show you close-ups of all of these palettes, swatches of all of these palettes, and why I chose them. I absolutely love eyeshadows. I'm constantly testing and trying new formulas, and I want to share some of that knowledge and experience that I have with shadows with you. I want to let you know what palettes are really, really good, especially if you're a beginner. To start off, I was thinking about mini palettes because maybe you're a beginner, you don't really know what you want to do with eyeshadow, so you don't want a ton of options. You want something you can travel with that doesn't take up a lot of space. I grabbed my Natasha Denona mini palettes. Now, these are $27. You can usually find these at Ulta, Sephora. If you're shopping the Natasha Denona site, you can use a discount code. I will put my discount codes up on the screen if I have any with any of these brands as we talk today. I'll also list everything in the description box. I'll tag it on YouTube shopping, everything. I got you. This is the Natasha Denona Mini Biba palette, and I chose this one because I really think this is going to work for a variety of skin tones. We have a dark shadow, and then we have a shadow that's even darker, which I really like. So I can create a look that has contrast if I want to, kind of like I have today with light and dark, or you can just use these lighter shades to do a mid-tone look. It is a mostly matte palette. We do have a shadow that's great for layering this cream to powder formula, and we have a beautiful shimmer. I also pulled her mini My Dream palette. So if you thought this was maybe a little too peachy leaning, the mini My Dream is a little more neutral, almost cool neutrals. And again, we do have the light shades, the mid-tone shades, and the deep shades. I really like the Natasha Denona mini palettes, but I thought these had a good range in the 5-pan neutral category. Natasha Denona has an amazing eyeshadow formula. I love eyeshadows. I'm creating looks all the time. I'm using bold, intense colors, and I still find myself loving Natasha. When I talk to people who don't wear eyeshadow that much, who maybe only have a couple of palettes, they seem to really like Natasha Denona too. So no matter how experienced you are with shadows, if you're just getting into them and you want a palette, I think Natasha Denona is a great way to go, and you can get her formula, try her palettes for $27. Now, one of my most used minis from Natasha Denona is her mini Xenon. I absolutely love this, and I don't know that I would recommend this exactly to a beginner who has never used eyeshadow before, but maybe you're still kind of in the beginner category and you're wanting to expand a little bit. You want to get a black shadow. Use it as liner, use it to deepen things up. That's why I love the Xenon, because I have a beautiful light creamy shade to lighten things with, and I have a beautiful black in here to deepen things up, plus you get a beautiful silver. So this is kind of like a little bonus recommendation. Now, in the mini palette category, I also wanted to talk about the Sigma Ambiance palette. This one, you do have a few more options. This is a 7-pan palette. So Natasha Denona is 5, Sigma is 7 pans, and you do have more shimmer options in this palette. While we still have our beautiful mattes, we have the light, the more mid-tone shadows, and the deep shadows. So I really like that we have that selection in mattes. And then we do have light shimmers and 2 mid-tone shimmers as well. So again, you have some beautiful options. And if you felt like maybe 5 shadows was not enough, you can definitely go with the Sigma Ambiance. Beautiful, beautiful. Sigma formula is so easy to work with. They're pigmented, but easy to blend. They're very flattering formulas. They don't take a ton of work and a ton of blending, so very, very user-friendly shadows, and nice, sleek, compact, doesn't take up a lot of space in your makeup bag if you're traveling, whatever. I wanted to give you an all-in-one neutral palette recommendation from the drugstore, and this ColourPop Precious Metals palette has blown me away. I saw this and I thought it was beautiful, but then when I actually got it in person and started creating looks with it, I really fell in love with it. I really think this is one of ColourPop's best palettes. They gave us such a good selection of neutral shades. Like, yes, it's all neutral palette, but we have these cool neutral shades over here. Like, these whole 3 rows are really cool leaning, and depending on your undertone will definitely affect shadows. So if you have a cooler undertone and you're using cool tone shades, it's going to complement really well, which is why I really like olive leaning shades. I have an olive undertone and it is warm leaning. So if I can't have olives, I really like these warm shades. If I put on a straight up neutral shadow, it is going to pull a little cool on me because that neutral next to my skin is going to look a little cool toned. And if you don't know your undertone, you're like, I don't know what shadows I like, this palette is going to be the one for you because you're going to be able to play with a variety of neutral shades and see what do you like on yourself. Because remember, makeup rules are there, they are helpful, but if you ever see like, oh, you have blue eyes, you have to wear this color shadow, you have green eyes, you have to wear this color shadow, that's all about personal preference. So this palette I think is great to see, like, what is your personal preference? What do you like? Do you like these more silvery grays? Do you like these bronzy oranges? I think this is such a beginner friendly palette and you get beautiful, beautiful ColourPop formulas. I do have a video creating 2 looks with this palette here on my channel, and I will link up in the cards as we talk today. If I have videos related to these palettes, I'll also have some videos coming in the future. This palette is just super gorgeous. We have shimmers, we have metallics, we have super sparkly shades, we have mattes with sparkle, mattes, all kinds of formulas, and I think this is a great, great palette for anybody who likes neutrals. This is the All Done Up palette from Blend Bunny. Blend Bunny is an independently owned brand, and a lot of the brands that we're going to talk about today are independently owned. Some of these are independently owned like Sigma that you can find at large retailers like Macy's, Nordstrom, places like that, but some of these brands are independently owned and are just available on their website or some smaller sites. So I will link to them all below for you in the description box and in a pinned comment. But Blend Bunny makes phenomenal eyeshadows, and I have to show you this All Done Up palette. Now this one I think is great for beginners because you have a variety of things to choose from. We do have the warm tone matte shades right here. We have these shades right here, they're a little more neutral, even a little more green leaning. We have these beautiful neutral yellows. We even have the cool tone gray type of shades over here. And then we have a fun row of greens right here. So you kind of get a little bit of everything in this palette. Overall, it is a neutral palette, but you do have some color options here if you want to play with those. We have mostly matte shadows, and the formula of these mattes is impeccable. Like, you can't do better than Blend Bunny mattes. They're absolutely gorgeous, easy to blend, pigmented, easy to work with, gorgeous. Now, all of these shadows are going to last all day. I would never keep a palette or recommend a palette to where you put it on in the morning and it's gone at the end of the evening, because listen, I need my makeup to last. And in this palette, you have beautiful shimmer formulas too. You even have a nice like shifty shadow that's gonna change. Like the way you move it in the light, you're gonna see different shifts, different reflex. We've got some super sparkly shades, really gorgeous. And I think any beginner would like this palette because again, you're gonna have those warmer options and those cooler options. This palette is under the $40 price point, and then once you use a code, I think it's around $30. I will say all of the palettes that I'm talking about today should be either in stock, or if they're out of stock, they should be restocking. I didn't pull any discontinued palettes, and I tried not to pull limited edition palettes. I want this video to be super helpful for y'all. That's why I'm including swatches, close-ups, talking about my reviews on these palettes. I didn't want to just talk about palettes that are like hot right now, new palettes, things like that. I wanted this to be a video that you can refer back to even 6 months from now if you're looking for a palette or a gift or something for yourself. This palette is gorgeous, and I think it's at such a good price point. We talked about the Natasha Denona. Those are $27, and this one for just a few dollars more, you get all these extra shades, but it's all about what you want as a beginner. Everybody is so different. Do you want a ton of shades to choose from? Do you not want a ton of shades to choose from? So hopefully with the variety, you'll find something that you like here. Now this is the only palette that is limited edition, but it has been in stock for a while, and I believe they're going to continue to keep it in stock as long as the demand is there. And that's the Full Fantasy palette from Laura Lee Los Angeles and Lunar Beauty. I absolutely love the quality of this palette. You see why I picked it, right? Again, we have those mostly neutral shades, but it's kind of an all-in-one. I like that we have all these neutral options here while also having a little fun with color. Something I've noticed is that people who love neutrals really, if they're gonna play with color, don't mind the greens and olives or the mauve purpley shades. So this palette I think is really genius in that we have those color options with our neutrals. So we have a beautiful purpley plum shade right here and a beautiful purple shimmer. Then we also have this more like rose gold pinky shade here. We have 2 to 3 olive shades right here. Every single person I've seen wear this palette, I think it's just gorgeous on them. And the quality in here is beautiful too. You get several different shimmer formulas, so you can kind of play around, see what you like. Some of the shimmers are very smooth. Some of them are more metallic. Some of them are more sparkly. So you have options, and that's what I'm here to give you. This palette is under $50, which I think is a really good price point, especially once you use the code, because the packaging is beautiful too. And I'm somebody who loves good packaging, okay? I can do minimalistic, sleek packaging. I think that's beautiful. And I can do like this kind of luxe fantasy packaging. Like, I kind of like it all. I don't discriminate when it comes to makeup. I love neutral, I love color, I love it all, but it has to be good quality. Now, if you're watching this and you're thinking, Heather, I love it, I love this, but I don't want any shimmers. I just want matte shadows. I don't want to start with anything sparkly. Let me tell you, Makeup by Mario is the one to go to. This is the Master Mattes palette from Makeup by Mario, and it is all neutral matte shades. This is a great quality palette. If you're looking at this palette right here and you're like, it seems a little too warm for me, I think this is the one that you're gonna want, because we have more straight up neutral shades in this palette with just a couple leaning a little more cool tone. I mean, of course on me, on my warmer skin, they look more cool, but if you're a neutral, these are gonna be straight up neutral. And if you're a cool tone who likes cooler tones, this would be the one for you. But when I tell you, I use these and I was like, oh, the hype is real, because they are pigmented and they just blended so easily. I know buttery in terms of a matte shadow, like a powder shadow, can kind of be like, wait, what? But what I mean is, you know, when you cut into a nice roll and you put your butter on and it just glides on and you're like, ooh, this is gonna be so good. That's this. It's like my lid is the roll and I put the shadow on and I blend and the shadow just glides and I'm like, ooh, this is so good. That's this. That's what I mean personally when I say buttery, okay? The shadows just blend. They almost blend themselves. They're that good. They don't, like, I still have to put in something, but I do not have to put in much effort at all. I'm not saying you need both of these as a beginner. I'm just saying you have options, because I love options here, okay? Like, don't tell me what to do. Give me options. Let me choose. That's what I'm about today. If you were on the opposite end of the spectrum from the Makeup by Mario palettes, you're like, I want some neutrals, but I mostly want shimmer shades. The Mario is not for me. Let me introduce you to Adept Cosmetics Flying Fiddles. This is an indie brand, independently owned, woman-owned brand. This is gorgeous. It is full of custom formulas, shimmers, a multi-chrome, duochromes with beautiful buttery mattes. We have beautiful, beautiful shade selection in here that is neutral with a couple of pops of color. This is the palette that I'm wearing on my eyes today for this neutral leaning look, and I will have the tutorial coming for this very soon, okay? It will be coming very soon. I did film it. And with this palette, we do have a gorgeous selection of neutral shades. We have this beautiful brown matte. This shade right up here, it can really look purpley. Like, I kind of really buffed it in today to kind of get that purple to come through to where it looks like a nice, rich, like purpley wine color, but very neutral leaning. You have this very neutral mauve shade right here. And then we have a lot of like beautiful bronzy shimmer shades. We have gorgeous options though if you want to spruce things up and dip into color. This shade right down here, Green Kelly, absolutely gorgeous. You can use that just on the lower lash line. You can use it on the outer corner as liner. But I like that this palette has so many shimmer shades with just that couple of like pops of color to where it's kind of an all-in-one palette. I think it's great for beginners because you can really get a feel for what you like. You can play with these neutrally shadows. You can see if you like multi-chromes and duochromes. And if you're new, hi, I'm Heather. Absolutely love shimmer, sparkle, everything like that. I always say I'm like a little raccoon. If it's shiny, sparkly, I'm gonna get my hands on it. And multi-chromes are shades of shadows or pigments that look like more than, I believe it's more than 3 colors. So as you shift, you can see all these different reflex, and duochromes shift 2 different colors. So you have a lot of beautiful options in this palette, and Adept has gorgeous custom formulas, like gorgeous, 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 y'all. And this is a place for me to tell y'all I'm not going to include my collaboration palettes in this video, because when I'm talking about favorites, I don't feel like it's really fair to include things that I created, because of course they're my favorite. I do have a collaboration with Adept, the Heather Austin palette. This, I think, of course, I think it's great for beginners if you're looking for something that's neutral and adventurous. You have beautiful sparkly shades with some colorful options. So if you're like, Heather, aren't you gonna talk about your collabs? Of course, I think these shadows are beautiful and easy to work with, but I don't think it's fair to include them in the list. And then my other collaboration with Unearthly Cosmetics, the Resurgence palette, I think is great for beginners who want to have some fun and try something new, because this is colorful and fun, but the formulas in here are very beginner friendly. And you may be thinking, what? The formulas are user friendly. You can use a blue, you can use a pink with these because they're easy to blend. They're not sticking somewhere where you can't get them to move. They're just really, really easy to work with shadows, and you do have like neutral options in here. They're not gonna be on this list, but I love them and I had to talk about them because I can't help myself. I love them that much. Now maybe you're thinking, Heather, all these palettes look great, but I want something that is just cool tones. I'm a beginner, but I know I love cool tone shadows, and I have to tell you about Cold Moon from Ensley Rain. I have to talk about this indie brand because they are so great, and this cool toned palette, it's gonna be what you're looking for if you're looking for cool tone neutrals. Do you see it? Don't tell me you don't see it. Like, you see how special this is. I know you do. It's so gorgeous. Just stop, look at it, look at it, look at it, look at it. Now this palette is around the $65, $64 price point, so it is a higher end palette, but you do get so many beautiful shades in here. The Makeup by Mario palettes are at the $50 price point, and in this palette, you're getting way more shadows. You're not just getting mattes, you're getting sparkly shades too. So it's really about what you're looking for. You get 10 matte shades in here, and the mattes are really beautiful neutral shades. You do have these gorgeous kind of gray tones, but you also have these cool tone neutrally mauves. We do have browns in here. We have light shades and we have deep shades, which I love. This palette also has multiple different shimmer special formulas. You have holochromes, which are shadows that shift and have like holographic sparkle to them. You do have shadows that are multi-chrome that shift those different colors. You have different formulas like sparkly shimmers, so you can really play around and create a variety of looks while still staying in that cool tone neutral family. So pretty. And if you were looking for a cool tone neutral palette, you want to have some fun, this one is for you. I would love to hear your recommendations as I'm talking. Like, what would you recommend for beginners? Like, if I don't have any eyeshadow palettes, but I love makeup, and I'm telling you, like, what palette should I try? What would you recommend to me? I would love to know. This is the Tarte Maneater After Dark palette. I really enjoy this palette. I always laugh. I say it looks like a laptop or something with a case on it. Just the packaging makes me think of that. But it's sleek and it's hard. So if you want to travel with this, you don't really have to worry about this getting broken because it's a nice sturdy case. And the other thing is, this has a massive mirror inside. Like, do you see how big this mirror is? And it stays, well, I say it stays as it falls down on me, but when you prop it like this, the mirror stays up. So if you're needing to like use the mirror in your palettes, which I do all the time, this one is nice. You can kind of set it somewhere, do your makeup, and the mirror's not gonna keep falling over. It's a little thing, but it's things like that that make a difference. So I want to point it out to you, but you can see this is a beautiful neutral palette that's kind of an all-in-one with a few fun pops, like this green, beautiful green metallic shade, very smooth. And that's something that I like about this palette from Tarte, is there are a couple of different formulas in here. It's not just mattes and shimmers. You have options in the formulas. Some of these shimmer shades are very sparkly. Some of them are more traditional shimmers in the sense that they're very smooth. smooth, but not in a way that really emphasizes texture, things like that. We have some beautiful metallic type shades, and overall, this is just a very impressive palette from Tarte. We do have some beautiful, beautiful warm toned shades in here. So if you pair these yellows and oranges with these brown shades over here, you can get something that takes it to a neutral but very warm level, and not so much like, oh, you're just wearing yellow shadow, which I love, but I know that's not for everybody. So you can pair it with these neutrals. We also have these kind of mauve-y, pinky shades. I had to talk about this one in beginner friendly palettes because I do think it's super easy to get a hold of being at Ulta, and the formulas inside are beautiful. This palette is around the $55 price point if I remember correctly, so it is a little bit more expensive, but I think it's a really great palette. We'll jump back to a palette that's more around the $35 price point, and that is the Neutrals from Cosmic Brushes. This is probably the newest palette that I'm talking about. This one released this year, but it's so beautiful, and it's not a limited edition palette. I've used this palette so much, and I've loved every look I created with it. Look how beautiful this color story is. It's actually an indie brand out of the UK, and I love all of the palettes that I have from this brand. Like, it's been love at first sight for me. This neutral palette is just like a hit. It is such a great palette from the brand. It is mostly warm leaning, but we do have options to not get those warm shadows if that's not what you want. You can kind of stick with these shades over here. I think because of like me, the way my mind works, my eyes kind of go straight to this kind of like red, orange, bronze, this kind of fiery yellow right here. I see it as being like, oh, warm. But if I really break it down and look at the shades, it's a neutral palette with options for warm or a little more just straight up neutral. So I think this is a great all-in-one palette. You do have several different formulas. There's multi-chrome in here. Right here, we've got that beautiful shade and this beautiful shade that has a gorgeous shift to it. We have a nice mix of mattes and shimmers, really sparkly shades, really metallic shades, and mattes that just blend and layer so well. So no matter how you want to do your eyeshadow looks, I think you're going to have a great result with this palette because it's just so beautiful and it's so easy to work with. Now, I know this is a top 10 video, and I know I've already thrown in some bonuses, some extra recommendations, but more is more. So I'm talking about 10, but why not give you a little bit more? I have a couple of other palettes that I just thought we should talk about, and we need to talk about Get Stoned. This is the first palette from the brand. This is an independently owned brand, but they are available at some major retailers, so I will tag them down below. This is a all shimmer palette, and I wanted to point this one out to you in case you're like, oh, I really want some shimmers, but I don't know about the ones you talked about. What would you recommend if I just want some shimmer shadows? This is a beautiful palette. It's a really, really beautiful palette. It is the first palette from the brand, and I was so impressed when I tried this. I think this is great for beginners because this is kind of full of shades that you can use with your matte shadows, but it's also used to do like one and done looks. If you're really just wanting to start out with shadow, you want something sparkly. And what I mean by one and done is one of these shadows, just pick one, put it all over your lid on the inner corner and be done. One and done. Absolutely beautiful. Now we do have very like neutral or neutral leaning shades in here with some pops. Like we have the pop of red, we have the pop of green, we have the pop of like blue. The quality is phenomenal. I know when I first talked about this palette, I talked about how impressed I was with the packaging. Like, it's so custom and luxe. The embossings on the pan, everything about this palette is just gorgeous. I'm super excited for what the brand does next, but even if you're a beginner with shadow and you just want to play with some sparkle, I think you will love this. Now, if you are interested in me talking about neutrals with some green shades or olivey shades or neutrals that lean on the green side, let me tell you about this palette from Oden's Eye, because I love Oden's Eye. They're so incredibly gorgeous. And look at this palette. This is like a half neutral, half green olive palette, and it's around $32 after you use a code. Absolutely beautiful formulas in here. I mean, the packaging, the color story, the price point, everything is so nice about this palette, but the formulas inside are what really matters, and the mattes are pigmented but easy to blend. Something that I personally love and I think is important is having light and dark shades, especially for a beginner. When you're wanting to play, you're wanting to see, what do you like? You want something that's maybe easy. You have those options in here. You're not gonna have to work hard to get any of these shadows to look beautiful. You have a nice mix of neutral shades, so you can do that, or you can incorporate some of these greens. So I had to talk about this one from Oden's Eye because it's one of my favorite palettes in my collection. Now, if you were interested more so in the mauve tones rather than the olivey tones I talked about, I have to give it to BellaBeauteBar Smoky Glam, because that's what this palette is. It is a lot of neutral shades with a lot of pinky purples, and this is gonna be for options, okay? It's gonna be for the one who wants options. And we have a lot of these pinky peach shades, but if you look down here at this bottom 2 rows, it's very neutral cool, and we even have some olivey cool tones. Over here, we do have these beautiful pinky purple shades. We have the light shades and we have the deep shades. So you can kind of get your neutral fix with this palette, and then you can also kind of have your more colorful shades. We've got a brown up here, so really neutrals kind of sprinkled throughout. You get mattes, shimmers, duochromes, like beautiful sparkly shades. You have a nice big mirror in this palette, and it's another woman-owned, independently owned brand. So if you're looking for the olivey tones with neutrals, this one. If you're looking for the mauve tones with neutrals, this one. If you love talking about makeup just as much as me, check out my palette collection video where I show you all of the eyeshadow palettes I have. I will pop that up here for you so that you can watch. If you enjoy eyeshadows, I have tons of other makeup videos here on my channel though, because I can and do talk about makeup all day, every day. So I would love to hear what palettes you would choose for beginners. Definitely let me know. Are you interested in any of these? Should I use any of these in future videos? I would love to hear from you.